All right, a quick announcement. So I have a book coming out August 1st. It is a mystery novel. And if you have any interest in that book at all, you should sign up for my newsletter at danielpoppie.com/newsletter. And you'll be able to get more information on that book through there. All right, that is the end of my announcement. Again, sign up at my newsletter, danielpoppie.com/newsletter. I think character motivation is one of the most interesting things to deal with when writing a book. Welcome to How to Write Good. I am your host, Daniel Poppie. You can find out more about me at danielpoppie.com. If it is your first time here, How to Write Good is a writing podcast that seeks to find principles and advice that can be applied across a broad range of writing situations. If you've been here before, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button below, and share. So I've talked about character motivation versus goals in the past, and if you want to hear the difference between character motivation and goals, you can either click it up here or you can find it in the description below if you're listening to this on audio. The reason why I'm having another episode on character motivation and not another episode on goals is because character motivation is far more complex than goals. So to start again, let's ask the question, what is character motivation? And I answer this question really simply, the why of the character, why a character does something. So for the character of Will in Pirates of the Caribbean, he does things for love. For the character of Jack in Pirates of the Caribbean, he does things for his own selfish ends, and one of those selfish ends is to get his ship back. In Mean Girls, Lindsay Lohan's character has a motivation to be popular. In Castaway, Tom Hanks' character wants to get home. In The Aviator, Leo's character is obsessed with perfection. And we all know the character motivation behind Christopher Nolan's Batman. Justice. Character motivation is not just extremely important because it can help us figure out what the goal is in our story, but it's more important because it shows us how our character reaches that goal. Though Batman wants justice, he does not believe killing criminals is just. He does not believe he is the final arbiter of justice, so he won't kill. In Mean Girls, because the main character wants to fit in, she falls in with the cool girls, and because she wants to belong so much, she even changes who she is. In The Aviator, the main character has an obsession with perfection, so he must make his airplanes perfect. And I believe this obsession with perfection, along with other motivation, forces him to lock himself in an upper room and urinate into milk bottles. When you are creating a character, you can think of the motivation of that character as rules you apply to your character. When we say that a motivation of Batman is justice, we must ask what justice means to Batman. And in Batman's case, it means that he cannot kill criminals. If we had a character motivated by virtue, we would have to decide what that virtue means to that character. That could mean the character is striving to be virtuous and does not believe they should do unvirtuous things such as lying, so they never lie in the story, or it could mean they think they are already virtuous and they are trying to make the world virtuous through force. Each of these different character motivations and how they are applied will end up with drastically different stories. In the first instance, we could write a scene into the story. We could write a scene where the character refuses to lie, and because of this, another person ends up dead. In the latter case, we could make a character so obsessed with making the world virtuous that this character is willing to kill atrocious people. You can actually see something like this play out in the television show of Dexter. Dexter has a code of ethics he will live by, but he also is a bloodthirsty killer. Because these two things conflict, he needs to find a way to satisfy both desires, so he ends up killing serial killers. So he is both a hero and a monster within the story. Now, as you see with Dexter, there are multiple motivations he has. If you are still a novice in writing, I would suggest that you focus on one motivation for the character and learn how to write that motivation into your story proficiently before trying to mix motivations. But I think it is something you should be reaching for. I think you should be trying to get to the point where your character has many different motivations. A real person, has many motivations, and their motivations can even switch from situation to situation. So if you are able to intertwine multiple different motivations into one character, you are going to make that character far more complex and far more interesting than if they are a one-note character and they are constantly driven forward by one thing only. This is what people mean when they talk about one-dimensional characters. They mean that they are lacking in multiple avenues of motivation. By having different types of motivation within a character and having some of those motivations conflict, we can make a character who is even struggling with him or herself to move forward in the story. If you have a character who is a drug addict and they are only obsessed with getting more drugs, that character is not going to be interesting. But if you have a character who is a drug addict who wants to get more drugs, but also wants to do the best for their family, and also wants to make a big impact on the world, that character is already far more interesting than the one I mentioned first. So to give you a better understanding of character motivation, I'm actually going to run through how I would develop a character with one singular motivation. This character's motivation is to become wealthy. So everything this character does in the story is motivated by wealth. In this case, the character goal and motivation are almost the exact same thing. So this character goes to school. This character works their butt off in school. When the character gets out, the character can't find a job that pays well. After trying to find a job again and again and again, the character finds one he likes. The job doesn't work out. He decides he's going to try to invest. What happens is that he goes into debt from investing. He quits. He decides to start a business of his own, and he decides this is the best way to make money. But his business fails again and again and again. One night, the character is greeted by the devil. The devil says he will give the character whatever he wants, and he's going to be back in a week. During that upcoming week, the character struggles with whether he wants to take the devil's deal. In the end, he does. He gets filthy rich, but we all know that the devil doesn't make deals without getting payment himself. So even though the main character is rich, all other aspects of his life are destroyed. Now, we could have gone a few different directions with this, and other stories have as well. In Citizen Kane, the character succeeds, but at the end of his life, he realizes that the most important thing is the thing that he was not able to hold on to. We could also take this story and we could make this character become a criminal. And we could either make him a pathetic, petty criminal by the end of the story, or a criminal who ends up developing a criminal empire because he wants to get wealthy. Again, all this goes back to the idea that the character wants wealth. And there's many different ways to move the character forward in a story with that motivation. The final thing I'd like to leave you with is that motivations do not have to remain the same within a story. It is oftentimes the case that we have a character who starts in one situation. They start in one mindset. They start with specific ideas. If you look at The Hobbit, the character of Bilbo Baggins dreams of adventure, but really doesn't want to go on adventure. And then once he has gone on an adventure, he loves the idea of an adventure, and he wants to have more adventures. The character can have one motivation at the beginning of the story, and the character's motivation can change by the end of the story. Looking at the character I just created before, who wanted to get wealthy, I could make that character want wealth. I could still keep the motivation of that character wealth, and I can move that character in the world according to that motivation. But after the character makes a deal with the devil, I can start to shift how that character sees the world. And by the end of the story, when he has lost everything, I could make that character shift his motivation from wealth to the people around him. This is actually similar to what happens in It's a Wonderful Life. In It's a Wonderful Life, the main character wants to be successful. He wants to go out and build things. He wants to make an impact on the world. But through various circumstances, he ends up staying in the small little town he hates. And he's a very bitter character throughout most of the story if you watch it. And the reason why he is bitter is because he holds that motivation, because he wants to be bigger, he wants to be better. He does not believe that he has reached his full potential. And he believes that the place he is in has stopped him from reaching his full potential. He believes that the situation he is in, with his kids, with his job, with that little town, has stopped him from being who he could be. Of course, in the story of It's a Wonderful Life, the main character gets to see how everyone else's life around him would be different if he did not exist. And his motivation changes by the end of the book. Instead of thinking that he's going to go out and build things and make a huge impact on the whole entire world, he sees that he's making an impact in his own little town. He sees that it isn't the things he's building, it isn't the wealth he has that makes him a great person. It is actually his impact on people. So his character motivation shifts from all his ambition toward looking at the people around him. And that is a very profound shift. And the goal of every author should be to make a shift in their character as impactful as that one. If you enjoyed this, you're probably wondering how you can support me. Well, you can actually do two simple things. Follow the first link below to grab a copy of my book, and then follow the second link and sign up for my newsletter. It's that simple. Those two things will mean the world to me and give me more time to write books and create content for you. As always, my name is Daniel Poppie, and this is How to Write Good.